everybody, Sam White here, founder at Shakespeare in Detroit, and welcome to our YouTube channel. If you haven't already, I want to invite you to subscribe so you don't miss any digital content coming from your favorite classical theater right here in the city of Detroit, Shakespeare in Detroit. Now, if your goal is to become a theater director in 2025, then you have clicked on the right video, because today I'm going to give you my top 10 tips to beginning a career as a theater director. So stay tuned. Now, tip number one for how to become a theater director in 2025 is to start with a reading. Start with a reading. Find a play that you love, that you've been wanting to hear aloud, and invite some actors or people that you know to read the play. And you can do that for totally free by reserving a room at your local library. You can use your state ID, your driver's license, or your library card to ask to reserve a room for an hour or a couple of hours, or for however long you need it. Talk to the librarian, reserve that room. Make sure you have copies of the play provided for totally free to the people who are volunteering to read the play with you. And read the play scene by scene, discuss the play, see what their ideas are around the play, the themes. Really have a big, open, robust discussion about the play and how you see it. Get feedback from those actors or those readers who you've asked to engage the play with you. And that's the first step. And again, you can do that for totally free by talking to your librarian at your local library and reserving a room for however long you need it for free. You may only be able to use rooms for like an hour or so you may have to take an hour and then maybe move to another room, take another hour. You can work that out with your librarian. But that's the first step in becoming a director. Start with a reading, make sure that it's free. You don't want to come out of too much of your own resources to make this first time out happen. You will maybe have to pay for copies so that everyone can have a copy of the play. Because the play will not be public, you can read any play that you want to, because it's not a public reading. It's just something that you're going to read and experience with these actors who have volunteered or with readers who have volunteered. And that's step one. Start with a reading, get used to engaging with actors, engaging with the performers or the readers who are going to read the play with you. Really sort of condition yourself to that exchange of energy and ideas and discussion and collaboration. Because that's what directing is all about, in my opinion. Theater directing, it's all about collaboration. And that's a great way to start. And you won't be coming out of a lot of resources for that first time out. And because it's a private reading and you're not inviting an audience, you're not selling tickets, you'll be able to do that for totally free and get that experience under your belt. That's step number one for how to become a theater director in 2025. Now let's talk about step number two. A big point for step number one and for step number two, which we'll discuss shortly, is preparation. You want to make sure, even for the reading, for step one, you are well prepared. You want to always have the goal to be the most prepared person in the room. And so with that, I suggest reading the play 3 times. The first time you read the play is just for the joy of reading it for yourself, to really just enjoy getting to know the play and the world of the play and all of that. The second time, you really want to start to think about the themes of the play and really ground yourself in the idea of working on the play as a director, looking at it from the full perspective. Because when you're an actor, you're looking at the world of the play, but you're mostly looking at sort of what your character, where your character was maybe born, what's your character's given circumstances. I mean, you're looking at the other characters too, but when you're the director, you're thinking about the mood of the play, the feeling of the play, the world of the play, the time of the play, all of the characters, how all of the characters' arcs sort of point at this particular goal or particular direction, because you want to make sure the story as a whole is headed in the same direction. You can't have, 3 characters who have, one thing going on, and then another group of actors maybe, or characters have something else going on. You want to make sure that everybody, even within their own particular character arcs and stories, the story is always headed in the right direction or the same direction. And so you really want to think about the big vision for the play in that second reading of the play. And then the third time, you want to get really specific. What is each character's trajectory? What's the time of the play, the weather of the play, the feeling, the mood of the play, the colors of the play, the themes of the play? What's the big transactional moment of the play? What's the goal of the play? Meaning sort of what's the story that you're going to tell, the big, thing that you're going to share with the actors so that everyone knows what the goal is in the room. You want to be thinking about these things, and the way to think about them is before you have a reading or before you go into a rehearsal room. The work of the director starts long before you get into the rehearsal room. And so that brings us to step number 2. Step number 2, I think that even in 2025, there's something to be said about paying your dues. And I know that the world works much differently than it did in the past. I'm very open to new ways and new ideas around becoming an expert in something. For me, for example, I did not go to university for a master's degree or a PhD in theater. So far, I haven't done that. I learned by hitting the ground running, by starting my own theater company. I saw a need for more classical works that featured people of color. So I had to learn how to direct by doing the work and really putting the work of a director into practical application. So I'm really a proponent and an advocate for learning how to do things maybe that aren't traditional ways of doing things, all about that. But I do believe even if you pay your dues differently than how maybe someone else did it, we all have to pay our dues. And so one way to do that is step number 2, and that's by asking a local semi-professional company or community theater if you can direct for them. That way, after step 1, after the reading, now you're moving into really executing a world, Again, before we step into a room, before directors step into a rehearsal room, we've probably started working on a play months, sometimes years before we ever see actors. And so if you work on a community theater production or a semi-professional production, you don't have the pressure of a big professional show. And also it's just more, it's probably more logical or more likely that you would start with a semi-professional show or community theater production. Community theater is a beautiful place to get your feet wet. I started in community theater, so I'm a huge advocate for community theater. And that's a great place to start if you are an aspiring director in 2025. Ask a local community theater if you can direct for them. There's so many. If you're in Michigan, there's Stagecrafters, there's Village Players. There's so many wonderful theater or community theater groups. There's St. Dunstan's. I worked at all 3 of those that I've mentioned to you. Wait, I don't think I worked at Stagecrafters, but definitely St. Dunstan's 20 years ago, Village Players like 15 years ago as an actor. It's a great place to get your feet wet too as a director. And so ask them. It's a volunteer gig. Ask them if you can volunteer to direct a play. And that way you can work on your staging. What are the exits and entrances of the play? When do you want those? What's the hierarchy that you're telling with your stage pictures from scene to scene, moment to moment? What kind of furniture do you need? Are you going to be working in a proscenium, a black box? Are you going to be working on a thrust? What sort of environment can you create within the infrastructure of the theater? You can learn all of those things, plus work with actors, on their feet, talking about the play, talking about the characters, really developing the totality of the world. Again, back to working on the play before actors are even a part of the process. You're working with designers to tell them, the feeling of the world, the ideas, the themes around the world, so that they can design the costumes for you, the set for you, give you the props that you need. Some of the props may be indicated in the script, some of them may not be, but again, if you volunteer at a community theater or ask to work with a semi-professional organization, you have the opportunity to really get your feet wet as a first-time director in 2025. Step 3 for how to become a theater director in 2025 is to enrich yourself, educate yourself as a director. And you can do that in many ways. As I shared, I don't have a traditional background as a director. I learned by putting the ideas and the technical aspects of the work into practical application by starting my own theater company because I saw a void in theater in my home state, in my home city. And so out of necessity, I started directing. I love it now, but it truly was out of necessity and not seeing enough directors of color directing in Michigan and in Detroit, and not seeing enough actors of color either. And so I started Shakespeare in Detroit and started doing the work then. But in addition to that, I saw the need to enrich myself, to educate myself on the technical aspects of directing. And so I've had many opportunities to do that. I've sought out many opportunities to do that as an arts leader and as a director. And one of those ways was in 2019, I was a part of the director's workshop at Yale University. And there were about 20 something or 30 something directors from all across the globe, from Japan to Brazil to here in the States to Canada. We all gathered together for, I think it was it 10 days, something like that. And we had a wonderful, wonderful time exploring the themes of several plays that were assigned to us under the direction, the guidance, and the mentorship of Evan Yanulis, who is now the head of drama at Juilliard, but at one time was a faculty member at Yale. And so we were immersed with her in learning lots of technical aspects of directing, and we learned from each other, and we got to do all of these exercises and homework and lessons and opportunities to put things into practical application by way of our time with Evan Yanulis. And maybe I'll do a follow-up video at some point about the sort of, especially for directors who are already working but want to sort of really talk about the specifics of what it is to direct. What are there? Because there's 6 particular things that we learned that encompass what it is to direct, but that's for later on. Let's just talk about how to start right now. So I did that. I enriched myself with this beautiful workshop at Yale University in 2019. And I've had other fellowships, and I'm mentored by a couple of wonderful directors. Even now, I consider Anthony Cimolino, who's the artistic director at the Stratford Festival, to be a mentor, as well as Barry Edelstein, who's the artistic director at the Oak Globe. I've had such a beautiful opportunity to get to know them and to be mentored by them. Oh, I should also shout out the other enrichment opportunity that I had. Also in 2019, I was a part of the inaugural class of directing fellows at the Oak Globe in San Diego. So enriching yourself is incredibly important as a director, and really learning those technical aspects of directing a play. Another way to do that, if you really want to jump in, head first to becoming a director and learning those technical skills, you can always go to an MFA program, a Master of Fine Arts program at one of the incredible universities in this nation. I know that Yale University has an MFA program for directors. I was a professor at Indiana University in Bloomington, and we had a wonderful MFA program for directors. And so you can Google MFA programs for directors if you want to make a 2 or 3 year commitment to really learning the technical and artistic aspects of directing. And you also, if you're an MFA director, you do get opportunities to direct. And so for folks who really want to take that deep dive, you can do that. But for those that don't, there's workshops and other opportunities, as I shared, that I've had the opportunity to be a part of, that you can also do. And so that's step number 3, is really enriching and educating yourself. Now we'll move right into step number 4. One thing that I think would benefit directors is to read a play a week. And I know that's asking for a lot, but not really. Even if you're not currently directing something, you should always be directing a play, because you want to know what's coming out, from playwrights across the nation, around the world. You want to, have plays in mind that you want to direct. If an artistic director or a producer came to you and said, hey, I would love to work with you. What are some plays you're thinking about directing right now? You want to have some ideas in mind. You want to create a wish list of things. Because if you don't read plays and you have no idea what to direct, you can't always wait for someone to offer you a play. Sometimes producers want to know what you're interested in, and they can see if it's part of their sort of big picture for their season. So you should always be reading plays. And I think it makes you a better director if you're constantly reading plays, a play a week, or as much as you can read plays. Maybe it's just every 2 weeks for you, or once a month, whatever you can handle, because we're all different. We all have different schedules. But you want to be reading plays. You want to get to know how writers are writing, learn how playwrights are using, because they're also very technical in their writing. But the more you read plays, the better you'll become as a theater director in 2025. Now, step 5 is to get to know artistic directors and producers. And you may be thinking, well, how do I do that, Sam? Well, you do that by sending them your resume and your cover letter. That's how you introduce yourself. Send an email, a nice short email saying, hey, my name is Sam White. I just wanted to reach out and introduce myself. And if you're looking for a new director, I've attached my resume and cover letter for you. Thank you so much for your consideration, and I hope to hear from you soon. Simple enough. And then attach your current CV or resume and a cover letter. You always want to attach a cover letter that explains your or summarizes your experience and your intentions in reaching out. And that's how you introduce yourself to an artistic director or a producer. I will say that in most cases, you probably won't hear back. I'm gonna just say that, you probably will not hear back because artistic directors and producers are very busy. So remember, and this is something that one of my coaches, because I have a business coach, one thing that she shared with me, shout out Nahima, the thing that she shared with me that I try to always keep in mind when I'm initially introducing myself to someone, whether it be a funder or a producer, anybody, if I'm emailing them on that first or that initial contact, I always remember that success is in the follow-up. Success is in the follow-up, not in the initiation of the relationship. So remember to follow up. If you're gonna follow up in 2 weeks to say, hey, I just wanted to reach out. I know you're very busy, but I wanna make sure that you received my cover letter and my resume. That's the way to really start getting your name out there and your resume out there. Even if your resume is short and you've only done a reading and directed one play, you wanna start to at least getting your name out there. And as your resume grows and your experience grows, you can always send an updated resume and cover letter to the folks that you are trying to build, the producers and the artistic directors that you're trying to build a relationship with. So that's step number 5. Step number 6 is to go for it. Just go for it. We spend so much time. I see this a lot on social media. There's a lot of I would, or what if, or if I was, or if I were going to do this, or if I was in this person's position, if. And success is not in the if. Success is in the doing. And so if there's something that you really want to do, don't talk about it, be about it. Go for it. Go for it. Start with step number 1 and step number 2 and 3 and 4 and step 5. And yeah, step 6 is to go for it. So when that day comes and you finally hear back from that producer and that artistic director that you've been trying to build a relationship with by initiating a conversation and then following up, because success is in the follow-up, that then means you're ready for the next step, and that's step number 7. And step number 7 is to prepare a PowerPoint, a really short PowerPoint, because people are busy. They don't like to have these long documents that they have to read. If they ask you about plays that you're interested in directing, or they ask you to pitch something to them, send a 3 to 5 page pitch about a play that you're interested in directing. So you have a wish list by this point, right? Because you'll be reading plays all the time. Pick the play at the top of the list that you really want to direct and send that pitch to them, a 3 to 5 page pitch, which summarizes the play, which explains the world of the play, which explains why you want to direct the play and why you think the play is a great fit, how that play will fit well into their theater's mission or their mission as a producer. Make sure you do that. 3 to 5 pages, not any longer than that, because these are busy people who have a lot to do. You want to use visuals, have pictures, images, references in the 3 to 5 page proposal, because you want to make sure that you keep them engaged now that you've grabbed their attention. And that is the next step on your journey of becoming a theater director. Tip number 8 on how to become a theater director in 2025 is, well, don't give up. Don't give up. The minute you give up is the minute before the opportunity that you were waiting for comes along. You can't give up. In order to be a theater director, you have to have audaciousness, you have to be artistically savvy, you have to be resilient, and you have to really believe in the power of theater, believe in the power of community, believe in the power of storytelling, believe in making things better or revealing the truth by way of these stories that we tell on stage. And so don't give up. It's certainly not easy, and I would say if you're thinking that these tips are things that you are just not interested in pursuing, or you want to jump steps, then it may not be the career for you. It takes a lot and it takes time just like any other career or industry or field, you're not going to, most of us, I'm going to say the majority, will not have overnight success. I don't know where overnight success happens for anybody of any field, any industry, any discipline. And so you have to keep at it. And it's exciting to keep at it, to keep doing the work. The more you direct, the better you become as a director. I think the better you become as a human and as a citizen of the world. So don't give up. And eventually, that gig, that opportunity, the door that you've been waiting to open is going to open, no doubt, because you will have kept the course, because most people don't continue along the course. And so if you're not willing to give up and you keep going, it's going to work out for you. And you know what? If you decide that directing is not the thing for you in 2025 or 2026, or as you go along this journey, you also have the free will and the ability to say, I'm going to try something else. That's the beauty of life. But my tip number 8 is to not give up. Tip number 9 for how to become a theater director in 2025 is to learn how to budget. Directors should know how to budget. If you're working on a play, the artistic director, the producer, the production director, the technical director, somebody is going to tell you what the budget is, and you need to be mindful of it as you are working on the play. You're the director, and so you have to direct the play. And again, the work of directing happens long before you step into a rehearsal room with actors. And so if you don't know how to budget in your personal life, chances are you're not going to be able to budget in your professional life as well. So developing budgetary skills is a huge component of being a director. And I think that's probably the case for film too. You want to know what resources you have, human resources, financial resources. You want to know what's available to you and budget accordingly so that you can make this world possible. And I think that knowing what your budget is, what your resources are, is actually a pathway to free expression. Because if you know exactly what you're working with, then that's the gateway to creating the thing. That's the pathway to creating the thing. You don't have to guess. You don't have to make any assumptions. You know what you have to work with, and then you begin to mold, create, build that world from the resources that are available to you. So if you want to be a theater director, learn how to budget. That's tip number 9. Now, the final tip number 10 for how to become a theater director in 2025 is a pretty practical tip. I want to invite all directors, new directors, aspiring directors, directors who've been directing for a long time to always have an intimacy choreographer or coordinator or intimacy director, an intimacy professional in the room with you. Especially if you're working on scenes that require intimacy. You want to do that to protect the actors, of course, and always. It's important to create an environment where there are established boundaries, established language, established communication. And you want to do that by way of an intimacy professional. It's important, I think, imperative, especially, well, it's always been imperative. I wish this would have been around a long time ago, but now that we have this resource and there are organizations in place to make sure that theater directors and other directors, film directors as well, have this resource, make sure that if you're negotiating a contract to work with a producer or to work at a theater, make sure that you ask them before you sign on the dotted line to ensure that an intimacy expert is in the room with you. And I would also say, it's always important to if you're a director, to always make sure that your stage manager is in the room with you when you're communicating with other collaborators or actors or anyone working on the show, just because it's good to have a third party with you. In some cases, actors may want to talk to you one-on-one, or designers may want to talk to you one-on-one. I always advise, having conversations in like open areas, like hallways where people can walk and come and go freely, just to make sure that you're keeping the actors safe, yourself safe in an environment that is open, that is healthy. It's just important. And of course, I always work with the the thought that and the value that everybody is coming with best intentions, but in an effort, and this is just practical advice, especially as the world changes and as the creative environments of our world change, keeping people safe is such a huge thing. Not just the actors, but the directors, the stage managers, the crew, everybody working on the show or the production that you're working on, in an effort to make sure that everybody gets what they need. It's always good to have an intimacy professional, always have your stage manager present. If people want to have one-on-ones, having those one-on-ones in open hallways and places that are free for people to come and go, open areas, just to keep everybody safe. Safety is key. And while this may have been tip number 10, I would say that it's one of the most important things that you want to have as a director in the room. You want to have as much support in the space to keep everyone healthy, to keep everyone safe, to keep everyone on the same page so that you can make the best production possible. And those are my tips. Welcome to the world of directing. Congratulations. You now have 10 incredible tips. I hope you think they're incredible to take your journey or begin your journey as a theater director in 2025. I hope that you found these to be beneficial to your path. Please let me know what you think about these tips in the comments below. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to Shakespeare in Detroit's YouTube channel. I appreciate you for watching. Have a great new year. Bye.